back for part 2 of our making our full silicone mermaid tail. I forgot that I got a new sign, so I added it. And how many people have noticed that I make these on the same day? So a lot of the times I don't change my top or my hair, but I always change my pants. I just like my pants to get views. Let me know in the comments. So anyway, so now we are on to part 2, which is our full silicone fluke for our full silicone tail. So if you watched part 1, it's kind of very similar to that. So you're going to start with your air dry clay, water-based, not oil-based. I said that in the first one. You're going to need a lot of it for this. I usually get, I think it's a 5-pound box that I get, or is it a 10-pound box? Or do I get, maybe get 2 5-pound boxes, so I get 10 pounds. You don't need all of that, but I like to have a lot, just in case I like do something stupid and have to throw some away or something. So you'll need that, and then how I like to start this is to draw it out. So you need a giant piece of cardboard, a giant piece of paper in the size that you need for your fluke. So my favorite thing to use is, I don't like to waste. So do you know the packing paper you get when you get like a shipment, and you get that big brown packing paper? I love to use that. It's a little wrinkly, but if you kind of like smear it out for a few days, or maybe lay something on it, it gets nice and flat. And I love to use that because then I don't have to like go buy something and, you know, put more into the environment that's recyclable. So I like to use that. So I get that and I draw out the shape that I'm thinking. You can put your details on it if you want. It's kind of a little difficult to follow them once you get like your clay on it, but you know, I'm not going to guide you on how to sculpt clay because I am in no way a professional. I'm just going to tell you kind of what I did. So I make that. I don't usually even put my details on it, maybe just so I know what it's kind of going to look like. And you can draw the whole thing if you want, but you're going to have to fold it in half so that you're even on both sides. So you want to know that you're going to get the same thing. So that way when you have this piece and this piece, you put it together, say you have little tentacles, they're all going to match up. So that's the importance of folding it in half. Then you're going to have the exact same thing, mirror image. So once you do that, you're good to go, you lay it out. You can put that down on the table. I personally don't like to do that. I like to keep mine on the side and use it as, really, I don't know if it would be considered a stencil, because the stencil is more open in the middle. I don't really know what it would be considered, because I cut it out and then I lay it on top and I cut the clay on the outside. I guess that'd still kind of be like a stencil. I don't know, whatever that word would be. So then I get my clay. So I like to do this on, you know those big like plastic folding tables? I like to use those. They're just big enough for the size flukes that I like. And that way it's not on the floor, it's not in the way. You can actually like pick that up and move it if it's somewhere that you don't want it, because it usually takes me a good 2 weeks, maybe more, depending on how much time I devote to it. It takes a long time for me to sculpt one of these. So what I like to do first is kind of get it on the table and then get my shape kind of going. So I kind of smear it out nice and thin, get the shape there, take my, I'm just going to call it a stencil. Correct me if I'm wrong, feel free, it's okay. So I take my stencil and lay it on top, and then I get my whole nice smooth shape, all flat. And then from there, that's when I start adding the little boning, any type of like lines that you want. If you want to go crazy and add like scales at the top, this is fully you. I'm not going to tell you how to make it. Mine aren't great. Please feel free to make yours whatever you want, make them beautiful. But that's when I'll add more clay, like to make the boning, or if you're going to add those scales, you have to add more clay at that point. But I like to have that nice flat kind of outline first and then work from it. You're going to like have to smooth, so it's not going to stay nice and flat and perfect, but you kind of have it there as like a base to start. And then sculpt away, sculpt till your heart's content. Like I said, it could take you weeks until it's perfect to where you want it, and always cover it. So I usually take like a giant garbage bag, like the big black ones, and this is just something I do, either like a sponge or like a wet paper towel I'll stick under there, not on the clay, but just under there to keep extra moisture in there. And then I'll put my plastic bag over it and kind of tuck it around the edge, not under the clay, but tuck it around the edges of the table, maybe tape it or something, depending on how quickly you're coming back, because it will stay pretty moist. Even for like, I've left it for like a week on vacation, kind of worried it would like harden until I got back, and it didn't, and it wasn't even taped. So it actually stays pretty moist under there. And then, you know, come back and forth till it's done. Once it's done, we're gonna do what I did in the last video. We're gonna use our Plaster of Paris. You're gonna need a lot of Plaster of Paris for this, a lot. You might even wanna mix it like multiple times because it's a lot to mix, even in that 5-gallon bucket. And my husband has one of those, I don't know what they're called, mixy things that you put on your drill. They're like, maybe, I don't know, that big and rectangular, and they spin on the drill. They're fabulous. They're used for like, I think you can also use them for concrete, but they're also used, we use them for our spackle. So that thing's like a miracle worker. If you don't have it, your hand will work. Your arm will just want to fall off by the time you're done. So same thing, smear it out. Always leave like a little extra. Don't put it right at the edge of your clay because you want that little bit of an edge. Again, I like to use a cheesecloth, especially on these because they are so big. These are what I've had break, and you don't want it to happen to you. You don't. You will cry. I don't care if you're not a crier. You will cry if this happens. So these I make super thick. They're super heavy. Just try to be careful with it. So same thing. Let that harden. Wait till all the moisture comes out of it. A couple hours. Take it outside if you want to spray it. I like to spray mine with the clear spray paint to get that nice glossy finish. I feel like it looks a lot better when you make the glossy silicone. I'm sorry if you see me looking. My dog is making a noise over there. So if you hear anything weird, I don't know, he might get barky or something. He is the one who's sick, so he might come walking across here at any point. He's in his bed though, so maybe not. He might just be, he looks like he's sleeping, so he might just be making noise in his sleep. But if you see me looking or you hear a weird noise, it is my dog. So anyway, so you can spray it if you want. And then once that, do you hear it? That's it. And then once that's dry, you're ready to go. So you can pour your silicone. That's half and half. We talked about this last time. Platinum Cure silicone. I forgot to get the name of it. I meant to get the name of it in between videos. Oh my goodness. Wish I could come up with it. Why can't I come up with it? It's driving me nuts. Well, I will put it at the bottom of this one. I promise I will not go into the next video without looking at the name of this thing. So then you want to pour that, add your colors. I think I talked about this in my tail video. I did not pre-color anything when I made my tail. I painted it at the end. You can do either, you can do both. I want to do both in the future. They look beautiful when you pre-color them, don't get me wrong, but you can add so much more detail and so much more variations of color when you paint them. That's my dog. He's probably hungry, so when I finish this video, I will feed him dinner. So anyway, so I would suggest that you do both. Color it first, and then once you get your like tail constructed, add your details of paint. So at this point, if you knew your tail was going to be some form of blue and you knew what color you wanted your fluke to be, I would go with like the lightest shade of blue that you knew was going to be in the fluke and just make that, you know, the whole thing that color. That way, if things start to chip off, they don't chip, like there's not chunks missing. Sometimes you can lose a chunk, but with mine, it just kind of scrapes on the bottom and just that little bit of paint kind of comes off the top layer. I apologize. So color that. And then, like I said before, that cures for a couple hours. But the fluke, it's a long time, especially if you have like thicker like boning pieces. Like I wouldn't expect to touch that for 24 hours. To like, cause that's not something I would pull out early if it's a little tacky or something, even to like just check on it. I wouldn't go near it. I wouldn't put anything near it. For risk of tacky things, you want that thing to like fully cure. So I would just wait till the next day to pull that out. Then you could make your second one. So then pour your second one. And then you have your two pieces. Somewhere along this, you should have had your monofin. I forgot to mention that in the beginning. When you make your stencil, as I'm going to call it, you're going to want to make sure that it is like in the shape of your monofin. So your monofin will fit nicely inside of this stencil. So the way that I did mine was like I left maybe like that much on each side. So say my monofin's in here. Out here is my silicone. You don't want it too big because it's going to be extra floppy, unless that's what you're going for. But then when you say like have your tail kind of up, if your feet are up, you're going to have like the shape of your monofin and then all these floppy pieces. So you don't really want that. I mean, unless you're going for that, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted it to flop a little, but not quite to see that shape of that monofin. So when you make your stencil, you're gonna wanna do that. Sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier. I personally like the Phineas Aquarius. As you know, I put that in all of my tails, but I also really like the Linden Monofin. That one I don't put in my tails a lot because of that little rubber edge. I feel that you can see it, so I kind of always stick with the Phineas Aquarius. But you can use whatever you want. You can even use like a higher end one. I know Phineas are more, not lower end, but they're a little cheaper. I know you can get like ones that are actually the size of your feet and everything. I don't want to throw out names because I don't want to like, I don't know if that's bad if I throw out names. So I know I'm throwing out Phineas, but that's because I use Phineas. And I'm saying good things. So I like the Phineas Aquarius. So that's what I use. Plus they're like easily trimmed. As you know, I always trim the edges. So those are my favorite. I know they're hard to get right now, but I still see them on like Amazon and stuff. So I did reach out to Phineas and I haven't heard back yet to see if they're still making them. So fingers crossed they still are. Because I'm one of those people that everything that I like, they always discontinue. Always. So anyway, so now that you have your monofin, you can take your two pieces once they're cured and you're going to sandwich the monofin in between and place it wherever you want it. I like to leave just kind of the foot pockets out, like a little bit of the foot pockets out, just so my feet can go in there. And then you're going to seal around the edges. So you're gonna lay it perfectly, and then you're gonna mix your silicone, and you're going to seal around the edges. For the bottom, you want to seal it because you don't want it to open, but you want to leave drain, I don't want to call them holes, so drain canals. So say this is your fluke. You're going to want to like run lines of silicone down and don't like smear that thing around. Like once you lay your silicone, lay that piece of silicone fluke down and don't move it, because you want to make sure that that stays open so that when water goes down through there, it comes out the bottom. So you want to make sure you do that, because if you don't put drainage holes, you are going to regret it so much. And then again, let that cure. And then you'll have your monofin. It won't be painted. I'm sorry, you'll have your fluke, not your monofin. You'll have your fluke. It won't be fully painted, but you'll be ready to go. You could paint a little at this point if you want, if you need to, before adding like the scales for the tail, or you can wait and paint the whole thing at the end. But at this point, you should have your loose scales and your fluke. And that's where we're at. So I'm going to do fins next, and then we'll talk about the construction. So I will see you in the next video, and don't forget to read my new sign, and please subscribe.